There is a metal that does almost nothing useful. You cannot eat it. You cannot build a house with it. You cannot make a weapon sharp enough to hunt with. It is too soft for that. And yet, for thousands of years, people have killed for it, gone to war over it, sailed across oceans to find it, built entire empires around it. Why? That is the question. And the answer is not what most people think. It did not start with money. It did not start with banks. It started with something much more human than that. And once you understand where it began, the rest of it makes complete sense. Gold did not need to be dug up at first. It came to people on its own. Rivers carried tiny flakes and nuggets of gold in their currents. When the water moved slowly, in shallow bends and pools, the gold sank to the bottom. It was heavy, much heavier than sand and rock. So while everything else washed away, gold stayed. People walking along riverbeds thousands of years ago would look down and see something glinting in the water, something bright, something that caught the light in a way that nothing else did. They picked it up. It was heavy for its size. It did not rust. It did not crumble. It did not rot. You could bend it with your fingers. You could hammer it flat without it cracking. And it was beautiful in a way that was hard to explain. It looked like a piece of captured sunlight sitting in the palm of your hand. Nobody decided gold was special. They just felt it immediately. But feeling something is beautiful and deciding it is worth dying for are two very different things. So how did gold go from a pretty rock in a river to the most desired thing on earth? That story starts in ancient Egypt, and it starts with one person's obsession. The ancient Egyptians did not think gold was just pretty. They thought it was the flesh of the gods, specifically the flesh of Ra, the sun god. Gold looked like the sun. It glowed like the sun. It never faded or darkened the way other metals did. To the Egyptians, that was not a coincidence. That was proof. Pharaohs covered themselves in gold. Their thrones were gold. Their death masks were gold. The burial chambers of the most powerful rulers in Egypt were filled with gold objects. Not because the gold was worth money, but because it connected them to the divine. If you were buried with gold, you were telling the gods, I belong with you. The most famous example is Tutankhamun, a young pharaoh who died around 1323 BC. When archaeologists opened his tomb in 1922, they found over 5,000 objects inside: statues, furniture, clothing, and over everything, gold. His inner coffin alone weighed 110 kilograms of solid gold. He was not a particularly powerful pharaoh. He did not win great battles or build great monuments, but he was buried like a god because of gold. Now Egypt was not the only civilization doing this. And what happened when different civilizations, all obsessed with gold for their own reasons, finally came into contact with each other? That is where things got complicated. For a long time, gold was not money. It was sacred. It was for temples and kings and gods. Ordinary people did not carry it around. But around 600 BC, something changed. In the kingdom of Lydia, in what is now Western Turkey, a king named Alyattes did something that had never been done before. He took lumps of a natural gold and silver mixture called electrum, stamped them with an official mark, and declared that every single one of these stamped lumps had a fixed, guaranteed value. He had just invented the coin. This was not a small thing. Before this, if you wanted to trade, you had to agree on what something was worth every single time. A goat for a bag of grain, a pot for some fish. Every trade required a negotiation. With coins, that problem disappeared. Everyone agreed that the coin had a certain value. You did not need to weigh it or argue about it. The king's stamp said what it was worth, and that was that. Word spread fast. The neighboring kingdom of Persia adopted the idea, then Greece, then Rome. Within a few hundred years, coins were moving across the entire ancient world, and they were made of gold and silver, because those were the two metals that everyone already agreed were valuable. You could not make people trust a coin made of iron or clay, but gold everyone already wanted. Gold was the one thing that crossed borders, languages, and religions without argument. Gold did not become valuable because it was used as money. It became money because it was already valuable. But that raises a deeper question. Why did every civilization, independently, decide gold was special, even ones that never met each other? The answer is stranger than you might expect. This is the part of the story that most people never think about. Ancient China valued gold. Ancient India valued gold. The Aztecs in the Americas valued gold. The kingdoms of West Africa valued gold. Ancient Mesopotamia valued gold. None of these civilizations were in contact with each other in the early days. They did not copy each other. So why did they all land on the same metal? It comes down to a simple process of elimination. Ancient people needed something to use as a store of value, something to represent wealth that could be saved, moved, and traded. They looked at everything available to them and tested it against a few basic requirements. It had to be rare. Common things are not valuable. Air is everywhere. Nobody fights over air. Gold is rare enough that finding it feels like an event. It had to last forever. Food rots, wood burns, iron rusts, cloth tears. Gold does none of these things. A gold nugget found in a riverbed today looks exactly the same as it did 3,000 years ago. A piece of gold in Egypt is the same as a piece of gold in China. You cannot say that about grain, or animals, or cloth. Those vary in quality, and it had to be impossible to fake. You cannot make gold from other materials. Either you have it or you do not. Gold was the only thing on earth that passed every single test. That is why every civilization independently ended up at the same answer. But knowing all of this still does not explain what happened when empires started fighting over it. Because when gold entered the world of war and conquest, the stakes became something else entirely. Once gold became the foundation of wealth, controlling gold meant controlling everything. The Roman Empire understood this completely. Rome needed gold to pay its soldiers, fund its wars, and hold its empire together. When Rome conquered a new territory, the first thing they looked for was gold. Strip the temples, empty the treasuries, melt down the statues. When Rome sacked Jerusalem in 70 AD, they took the gold menorah from the temple and carried it back to Rome in a triumph. It was not just looting, it was a statement. Your gold is now our gold, your power is now our power. The same pattern played out everywhere. In West Africa, the Mali Empire built its legendary wealth on one thing: gold from the mines of Bambouk and Bure. The Emperor Mansa Musa, who ruled in the early 1300s, is considered by many historians to be the wealthiest person who ever lived. When he made a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he brought 60,000 people with him and gave away so much gold along the route that he accidentally crashed the gold markets of Egypt and the Middle East. Prices collapsed. It took years for the economy to recover. One man, one journey. So much gold that he broke an entire region's economy just by being generous. That is how much gold had come to matter. And yet, through all of this, gold still could not feed you, could not shelter you, could not keep you warm. It was still technically useless. Here is the honest answer. Gold is valuable because everyone agreed it was valuable. And once enough people agreed and built systems around that agreement, the agreement became self-fulfilling. Empires rose and fell. Currencies changed. Religions changed. Languages changed. The agreement about gold never did. Ancient Egyptians, Romans, Chinese emperors, West African kings, Aztec rulers, none of them could talk to each other, but all of them looked at the same yellow metal and felt the same thing. That feeling, that immediate irrational universal pull towards something rare and beautiful and permanent, is one of the strangest things about human beings. And it is older than writing, older than cities, older than farming. Gold was the first thing the whole human race ever agreed on.